Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for being here on Wednesday, February 12th. Right now, we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their general manager search, which is hot and heavy. According to Jonathan Jones, they're trying to get all the interviews in this week and then make a decision and hire their general manager of the future and the present before the NFL scouting combine, right? So that's the timeline they're on, according to Jonathan Jones of CBS. Now, the Jaguars, they have an extensive list of interview requests. They're getting those interviews again going this week. They started off yesterday with Josh Williams from the 49ers, who has been with the 49ers organization since 2011, I believe. So, yeah, he came up under Trent Baalke. Yeah, he worked with Ethan Waugh. So that is an extremely familiar name to Ethan Waugh, who is currently the assistant GM, and Ethan Waugh will also be getting an interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So kind of interesting that you have two guys from the same Trent Baalke tree, I think it's fair to say, that are interviewing for this job. Did they share the same scouting beliefs as Trent Baalke? I don't know. Hopefully they both have a more collaborative approach to general management and a little bit more loyalty, alignment, certainly with what the Jaguars are trying to do right now with EVP Tony Vaselli, head coach Liam Cohen, having a coach-centric organization. Will either of them get the job? I don't know. But the Jaguars, they confirmed they met with Josh Williams from the 49ers yesterday. Been with the 49ers for about a decade and a half, and before that he was a receiver at Columbia. So wide receiver. Maybe he's a guy that go get the Jaguars a strong wide receiver too. Who knows? The Jaguars are also today interviewing a new name that popped up yesterday, Terrance Gray of the Buffalo Bills. That would be really something to bring another Bills staff member. This would be the first front office member they've brought over, but the Jaguars have been bringing over Bills coaches and players a lot the last few years. But Terrance Gray is the Bills director of player personnel. He's been with them for a while, since the late teens, rose up their personnel ranks all the way to director of player personnel, which director of player personnel is above college scouting and pro scouting. So he has his hands in everything there. Was in Minnesota for a long time before that as a scout, Kansas City before that. So he's been with some good organizations, no doubt about it. He played cornerback at Oregon State for a very good team. So maybe he would be one that would be able to identify that CB2 for you. Although you look at the Buffalo Bills, they've had some struggles identifying cornerback talent. Tre'Davious White was obviously a great pick for them way back when, but he had injury issues, and then they missed on Kaiir Elam, it looks like, or they're not comfortable getting him on the field. So who knows? You never know how these talent evaluators, where they really shine and where they might struggle. But I think as much as the talent evaluation piece of it is the making sure that you're aligned. They're going to have horizontal alignment between the EVP, Tony Vaselli, the head coach, and the assistant GM. If there's one person that might have the most power, I would think it's Liam Cohen, but they're supposed to have horizontal alignment, direct lines all the way up to Shad Khan, right? So Terrance Gray, obviously the Bills have put together a very good roster. I think they've done a tremendous job with their offensive line. I think being around the Bills, the Vikings, the Chiefs, these are good organizations to have been around overall. And obviously he wasn't with the Chiefs when Andy Reid was there, but I still think that he's got a wealth of experience, and his most recent experience and his rise up the ranks for the Buffalo Bills is kind of a shining light on him as a candidate, right? As I mentioned, you've also got Josh Williams from San Francisco, James Gladstone from the Los Angeles Rams, Chad Alexander from the Los Angeles Chargers, Ian Cunningham from the Chicago Bears, Brandon Brown from the New York Giants, Trey Brown from the Bengals, Ethan Waugh, assistant GM currently. Mike Greenberg was originally on the list, but he's sticking around in Tampa Bay. Greenberg was the one that was really the numbers guy, the cap on the cap side of things, the business side of things. A lot of these other guys kind of came up in scouting. So I think that that's a common theme you're seeing from them, is trying to get someone who has that advanced degree in scouting and has also had their time to where they can kind of see how things operate. I'm sure there will be a cap guy in the building. It would be shocking if there wasn't. And the Jaguars, with Shad Khan's ability to write big bonuses, big checks, they've never really had major issues with massaging and outmaneuvering the cap. If you have an owner willing to spend every single year, you can basically get away with massaging the cap quite a bit consistently. You might have to have a year where you don't go big, but it's not difficult if you have the owner willing to spend. And certainly that will be an advantage for whoever the GM ends up being here in Jacksonville, and for the coaching staff and everybody involved, right? That is one big advantage that Shad Khan gives, is his willingness to spend on this football team. From a coaching staff standpoint, from a facilities, and from a roster standpoint. He will do as much as he possibly can from a monetary standpoint to make sure the Jaguars have every advantage that they can with the salary cap. He has proven that for the last, almost decade and a half. And so, again, Terrance Gray is supposed to be today. Ian Cunningham, according to Rap Sheet, is supposed to be on Friday. And I think you look at this landscape, and what most fans I'm seeing are most excited about is Ian Cunningham from the Bears and James Gladstone from the Los Angeles Rams. I think those are the two favorites among fans from what I've seen, which it makes sense. Like, Gladstone's been with the LA Rams throughout a lot of their different iterations of what they have been as a team under Sean McVay, and they've been an incredibly impressive organization, able to pivot not only from a coaching philosophical standpoint, but able to support those pivots with their talent acquisition as well, able to rebuild that defense in a flash over the last year or so, couple years. So he's been really impressive. And then you look at Ian Cunningham, I mean, everywhere he's been it's a sterling resume. And he's a former offensive lineman in college, so somebody who maybe is going to value the offensive line and be in lockstep with Liam Cohen and Tony Boselli in that regard, who both of those guys have really talked about making sure the offensive line is good to go. So he started with the Ravens in 2008, was there through 2016. Next team, Philadelphia Eagles, and then he got his job in 2022 as the assistant general manager for the Chicago Bears. And the Bears, for some of their faults, they've done a really good job building that roster. I think that their trade with the Carolina Panthers was excellent in terms of being able to create an advantage for building that roster. They're a talented football team. There's no question about that. Just so happens that they're in a really tough division with a rookie quarterback last year. And so I think Ian Cunningham is a strong candidate. Personally, for me, Chad Alexander and James Gladstone are at the top, so go get one of those guys from LA that you're looking at interviewing. Chad Alexander, when I've heard him talk and what his teams that he's been on have done, the Chargers this past year, who had a tremendous offseason, the Jets, who pretty much just couldn't get it right at quarterback, but did a lot else right while he was there. And then he spent like 20 years with the Ravens, and he talks about a culture of genuine transparency. I think that falls right in line. And then James Gladstone, again, from the Rams, we talked about. So those are my top guys, but certainly they're looking in the right places. I think that they have a tremendous group of candidates, of names for this job. Again, Terrance Gray will be today. And we also have a mystery general manager candidate. One of the strangest tweets from Josina Anderson here. This is what she has to say. I'm told that the Jaguars have formally expressed interest in interviewing a former NFL GM for their current vacancy, per sources. We'll see if that interest manifests into organizing dialogue in a formal setting. What's confusing about that is she says the Jaguars have formally expressed interest, but then says, we'll see if that interest manifests into organizing dialogue in a formal setting. And then she says, interestingly enough, a league source gave me the name of a former NFL GM to keep an eye on through the Jags GM process 2 weeks ago. Okay, so very strange. I don't know what that means. It means that Josina Anderson believes that they're interested in a former GM, potentially, for their current general manager job. Who is that? I have no idea. I've seen a lot of speculation. I don't think it really makes any sense to speculate, considering there's like double-digit names that could potentially fall into that category. So who knows? In my opinion on that one, we'll wait and see if somebody actually reports the Jaguars showing interest in a former GM to come in and potentially be that guy for them again. But as of right now, everyone that they're looking at is an up-and-comer, a rising star, which fits the mold of everything that they have done from a coaching staff standpoint, from bringing in Tony Baselli as the EVP. It's all fresh, it's all new. It's people rising up the ranks and establishing themselves. And so, is Josina Anderson's report on the money? We will find out. But right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they are going to be interviewing Terrance Gray today. They finished up their interview with Josh Williams yesterday. Ian Cunningham coming up on Friday. I imagine we will get a lot more news about different interviews over the next couple days actually taking place. The Jaguars have a tracker on their website, and we'll hear from countless reporters, I'm sure, as well. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.